ZachK's aka ToonKriticY2K was a YouTuber who specialized in creating brony related content on his channel. I actually went over him in my Little Gooner video, but given the fact his story is so interesting plus the fresh new info that I uncovered that just came out weeks ago about him, I figured to upload this as its own topic and video to help spread everything around and show people his story is far from over and that he's still around on the internet. Shout out to the channel members like always, and if you'd want to support yourself, you can subscribe to my Patreon in the corner or YouTube memberships by clicking the join button. Remember to like the video and subscribe for more content. Now let's jump right into everything and see what's going on here. Before he was known as ToonKritic, he used to go by the name of FlameAmigo619 and was a proud user of the site fanfiction.net. He would write a handful of stories about multiple properties, including Sonic the Hedgehog and My Little Pony of course. However, one of the more interesting franchises listed was Thomas the Tank Engine, and people soon find that he wrote up a story called Thomas the Romeo Engine and published it in February 2008 when he was just 16 years old. In this story, he goes into semi-detail about two trains basically going down on each other, to put it bluntly, and it's absolutely hilarious to read and somehow more autistic than the brony stuff, but I digress. Funnily enough, after he was being made fun of for this, he would delete that story and update his bio, but it was too late as it was already cemented in internet history. ToonKritic even used to do fandubs for the show as well, with a small handful remaining as these were posted well over a decade ago now before he took them down.
Bleh. I didn't lose it. Tee-hee.
You lost the 20th freedom! You lost one of the most important freedoms of our lonely and pathetic lives!
He would do this with other franchises like the Animal Crossing video game for example, with both being in an obvious bad quality even by the late 2000s, early 2010s era. However, after coming across Angry Video Game Nerd and Doug Walker of their respective reviewing channels, ToonKritic here decided he wanted to shift his content to these reviews rather than silly little skits online, and in turn decided to focus on cartoons, going on to officially don the name ToonKritic for the first time ever. One of his earliest reviews was Thomas the Tank Engine, and no one's surprise. And when seeing someone who is in their 20s focusing their reviews on a child's property, it's not exactly shocking he wasn't getting the attention he wanted. ToonKritic would see this lack of growth as a major issue of his, and so in May 2012 he would move on to the ever-growing brony community, as it was arguably the peak of the fandom's existence with the ever-growing popularity of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic back in the early 2010s. He would get himself a pony character to represent his channel and start to create videos reviewing the show and talking about it for people to enjoy, even talking about other properties he found interest in as well, like the Sly Cooper video game series for example. The videos themselves are very simply made with minimal editing and not heavy on the scripting, but he would become a known figure in the community and even become close to someone named Josh Scorcher, another online content creator who dabbled a bit with the brony content back in the early 2010s. These two alongside many others would form together this so-called brony analysis community, with some of the heavy hitters being Inkrose and her 9 million view video talking about a headcanon, and Silverquill with a general analysis getting over 4 million views himself as well. As funny as it is to make fun of these people for caring about a tame child's cartoon, views are views, and this was clearly one of the ways to kickstart an internet career back in the fandom's heyday. While ToonKritic wasn't pulling nearly the same amount of views like those people, he would become close enough to join a big brony Skype group called the Rift Cafe, some sort of fanfiction-esque type group that no doubt helped him build more connections through networking with others. It was during this period where ToonKritic was in everyone's good graces that he would introduce his evil alter ego Cartoon Z into the mix, a character that dressed like one of those swag people from the early 2010s alongside a new voice and personality to boot.
They introduced another fictional universe for the ponies an episode later.
You're both so naive. Nothing's changed since Toon first met you both.
There was even this sort of thing where he would upload videos on other people's channels using this character as a way of hacking them, which while pretty weird it wasn't anything bad, so whatever. There's even this whole lore write-up about the Cartoon Z character coming into existence through like a beam in the sky and fighting other stuff on the Rift Cafe wiki. So while it was clear this was mainly just a really bizarre way of a group of odd people having fun with each other, it wasn't anything bad it seemed. Of course it comes to no one's surprise there's still a bunch of more stuff going on here with ToonKritic, as let's just say his reputation in the community was a bit more shaky than it initially seemed. BronyCon was a convention that ran from 2011 to 2019, and while there were other conventions that existed, this was seen as the de facto convention for anything MLP related back in the 2010 era. Now obviously it's cringe and all that, but we're not here for that, we're here for the bizarre stories, such as how the founder of BronyCon, Purple Tinker, was accused of being a meth dealer who was arrested during BronyCon 2012. However, it turns out they're actually live streaming during that period in which they were arrested, meaning that some random person was starting to pot for internet drama reasons. It's pretty weird but nothing bad, And while ToonKritic himself would enjoy his time at these multiple conventions and even get a picture with the creator of the show, Lauren Faust, it seemed that people didn't exactly like him despite what it seemed like on YouTube. At the Brony convention BabsCon 2017, 3 people get their hands on ToonKritic's beloved hat and put it in the toilet for shits and giggles. This would eventually lead to allegations started by ToonKritic of them asking a girl who went to get the hat back to show her boobs in exchange for it, that which led to them getting banned from the convention for alleged sexual harassment. Given it's virtually only word of mouth, the girl said she wasn't harassed like that, and the fact that I really don't give enough of a fuck to look into this, it's likely ToonKritic was just mad someone stole his hat and put it in the toilet and he wanted revenge. However, this story is nothing compared to the next, and for those familiar with older internet lore, you might know what's coming up. Someone named Minty Root would be invited to BronyCon 2015 alongside other random people and given their own plushie dolls, with the one on screen being the one given to Minty. He would get his own hotel room with some other random people, and one night will leave to go hang out with another friend of his. When he went back to the room, he realized he had forgotten his key, and when asking to get back in, they told him to go away, with him assuming they threw a party but didn't invite him as he went on to chill in the lobby for the night. Later that night, when he was let back in, he was told not to touch his plushie because, and I quote, ToonKritic took it and rubbed it down his pants. It turns out that they had an orgy in the room, and the reason Minty wasn't invited was because the chick thought he was gay after he told her he was bi instead. On top of that, when asking for an apology from ToonKritic for defiling his plushie, he would instead put out this video mocking him for being Canadian as people started to trash on ToonKritic for being mean to him for no reason.
What's good, amigos? Cartoons here. Now, today's vid is a little unusual. Toonie here is not one for stepping into drama. I, on the other hand, court it quite well. So today this video is for Minty Root. Now, in the spirit of good fun, sir, I realize you and I don't exactly see eye to eye. And the fact we've never actually met and you hate Toon over a little, incident with the plushie that he didn't know was yours, but that's beside the point.
Hey, how come you just keep on making me feel so bad? I mean, I know I do all my stuff on my animations, but let's put it this way, they are magnifique, no? Oh, you're just like all the rest of those ignorant pigs.
Honestly, the entire clip is extremely tame, but given he couldn't apologize for what he did and instead acted childish over it, people started to dislike the man over the next few years. A girl who was involved named Fallen Wish has even gone on record talking about the experience in a Discord call sometime after January 2018 as well.
Later, and she invited herself. She's like, oh my god, can I come too? Invited herself, and then she invited ToonKritic when we were at the pool party for the other guy to be involved. So they all came, and I'm just sitting there like, mother. I hate this girl. I hate her. I hate this girl like more than anybody ever.
So did this Nikki V guy fuck ToonKritic?
Yes.
Yeah. Nikki V, of all people.
However, people would soon be given a much better reason to dislike him, as let's just say there's a reason I know the general time frame that last call took place. On January 25th, 2018, over 500 Skype screenshots leaked out of ToonKritic when he was 24 years old talking some type of way with a 14-year-old minor. The messages seem to have started on November 11th, 2016, with ToonKritic very well aware he's being a creep asking a teenager for face pictures as you can see at the bottom there, with him even calling himself a pedo at one point when chatting as he would notice she was into him. He would again try to play it safe and whatnot, very well knowing what he's getting himself into is absolutely disgusting, this time trying to get her into doing NSFW roleplays with him. In the middle of this NSFW roleplaying, ToonKritic would make references knowing that she's underage, such as mentioning her breast size, and at the end the girl herself would confirm her age to him for anyone wondering if he was perhaps lied to about it. By January 2017, just 2 months into their little relationship, he would admit he was attracted to her in a mental and emotional sense, and in May that year would ask if she wanted to take things a step further in their relationship of sorts. He would then straight up say that he's into her, which is just sick, and she wouldn't see an issue with this given she's so young, with it being very obvious he got her right where he wanted her to be. In August that year, when talking about potentially meeting up at a convention together, she would say how she might not want to take it any further, with ToonKritic implying that what went down in their roleplays would go down in real life if it were just the two of them. As he would clearly show how he knows what he's doing is wrong yet kept up with it, in December 2017 he would finally come to his senses and realize all this was extremely disturbing and gross. Who knows what led to this, but he realized that he had been involved with the now 15-year-old like this for over a year now, with the girl seeming to mainly just be curious more so than anything about why he wanted to stop things. While I can't seem to find a story as to how these leaks got out, it's safe to assume she eventually got to understand this was all completely screwed up and so screenshot everything and dropped them online a month later for the world to see. A screenshot will leak out of ToonKritic confirming this was all real with a friend of his, in which he tries to defend himself saying that the age of consent in the Philippines is 12, despite, this taking place in America and not in another country. One of those people spreading the news around was Joshua Vida, which let's just say we'll come back to him later. On the same day the leaks came out, someone would leak a Skype call that ToonKritic had with his friends, in which they grilled him for what he was doing as they realized he was a pretty disgusting person. The video itself is pretty boring all things considered, with them telling him to turn himself into the police, but it was very clear when listening to this that, for all intents and purposes, it was over for his horse fame and internet career.
There are no excuses. I'm not going to do much really other than say I was in a bad place and I made bad decisions. I got involved in the wrong type of thing. I really screwed up on that part.
We can't associate with this. We cannot.
Seriously?
Seriously, we cannot. We can't be associated with this.
Dude, look, I made a stupid mistake, or I'm trying to fucking change from that. I get it, alright? I did some stupid stuff. You guys are my friends, like...
I'm sorry, dude, but...
Not anymore.
This is a crime. This is a crime, man. I don't want to do this.
At one point, he even says he's done worse before, and that in one of those cases, the police did get involved after a girl apparently lied about her age to him, showing just how deep the rabbit hole goes with the dude.
There have been times where I admit I have done things that are probably worse than this. In fact, I can safely say that this is one of the worst things that I've ever done. But there have been worser. This is not my first time in this type of situation, and I've not told you guys a lot of things. I don't know if I'll be able to now.
Minty would chime in the very next day on the 26th and point out how in his Thomas the Tank Engine fanfic, he used 2 teenagers doing certain activities like that, which given the context of how he is now makes it even worse to read. That same day as Minty's post, someone else named Abby would come out with a similar experience, showing that he was hitting on her despite being a minor as well, meaning this dude has a track record of talking to underage girls and only got caught recently, which is very disturbing to think about. It was officially over for him by this point as the news had made its way outside the Brony fandom and into general niche internet circles, but this fallout from everything was just the beginning. As the news kept spreading around, Zach Kaiser changed the bio on his Skype saying that he had a good run and such now that his reputation was ruined. He would eventually nuke almost every single social media account he had on the internet, and people started to draw up artworks making fun of the guy for very obvious reasons. Hell, somebody would even cosplay as him as a criminal in jail at a BronyCon a few weeks later, much to everyone's amusement, with people assuming he was now just gonna simply vanish into thin air. Well, there were some very few people trying to defend him because they're complete losers. There's one person named Performance Major who takes the cake, as he would go on to post the most bizarre defense video on the guy and give outsiders an understanding of just how crazy this side of the internet is like.
I roleplay with just about anyone who's willing, and sometimes, if the minor is mature enough, I'll roleplay with them too.
That's right, he just admitted to engaging in NSFW roleplay with minors, the guy who was trying to defend ToonKritic yet showed himself to be just as bad as him, showing everybody keeping up with the situation that something is very wrong with these people and that they're all extremely sick in the head. In February 2018, just a few weeks after getting exposed, people started to say that this Telegram account was his and that he was trying to move into the furry community, and given his name is Zach and the name of the account is Zachy, there was some credence to these rumors. Around the same time, a Skype account named The World We Knew was said to be his, and leaked messages to show conversation that heavily implied as such, with people not giving up on keeping up with the dude and his internet whereabouts. In January 2019, over a year later, someone would post a screenshot of a Discord account named Mucha Lucha talking with someone who figured out their past, in which they would link Google Docs written in ToonKritic by his former friends before they dropped him, showing that he was indeed this user and was still around on the internet. The link to the first statement is by his former friend Emily, and it still works, in which she mentions how he asked if she wanted to go down on him despite him knowing she was married, showing just how depraved this man was and the lengths he was willing to go to get some action before he eventually settled on teenagers. The second link works as well still, though it's not as personal as Emily's and is rather short as the screenshot on screens the entirety of it, with his former friend Joey basically just ranting at him as he cuts him off. The third one has been deleted entirely, so while we don't know what was said, it's safe to assume it was more the same. In March 2019, Zach would be found out again but abandoned his Discord account to just a blank profile, in which a leaked message to a friend shows him manipulating what happened a year ago when he was exposed to try and make himself out to be a victim, also showing that the deleted document was written by former friends Will and Katie before they nuked it. It turns out since summer 2018, he had been talking to this random person about how he felt, showing that he misses his friends and regrets talking to minors now that he has this label on him for the rest of his life. He would say how he planned on going to a con despite getting exposed recently and confirm it was indeed him speaking by name dropping himself, and his anime roleplay account and new custom character would be leaked online for those keeping up. In March 2020, people find out that Zach was now streaming on Twitch under the name Zephyr the Indie Dingo, as someone recognized his voice when tuning into one of his streams.
Here, I'd like to make you a little peace offering with the little,
yes, the most fearsome dragon of all, Michael.
He would abandon this shortly after being caught online once again, and in November 2021, an account said to be his would be called out online by those still keeping track of him. I say said to be his because no evidence proving it was him would be supplied, but the account would get deleted within the week people called it out, so that means something, I suppose. Since then, nothing new has come out about Zach Kays and his whereabouts, but people will always be looking out to warn those about this dangerous man. He clearly knew what he was doing with the girl on Skype was wrong, yet kept it up. And after seeing Emily mention how he tried to bang her despite knowing she was married, it was obvious the reason why was because he was so deprived of human touch he did one of the most heinous things a person can do. Due to what he did, people will always be on the lookout for him, knowing that he was willing to go to such disgusting lengths to satiate his desires, so only time will tell if the next update on his whereabouts will be soon or if it will be another few years from now. Yeah, it turns out this story isn't over just yet, as on July 18th, 2024, Twitter user SammyBill will make a call-out post about someone named GoldNova92 and how he harbors bad people in his Discord server and is overly sexual with people while not taking no for an answer. It seemed like just another random Twitter call-out post, but on August 8th, just a few weeks later, somebody named Vinny would come out and expose it was actually ToonKritic this whole time. He will go on to talk about the old stuff we know already as an introduction for anybody learning about the guy for the first time, and ends things off apologizing to everyone who was in contact with him but didn't know how bad he was, wishing for him to rot and that he will never escape his past no matter how hard he tries. Sammy would retweet the thread now that the cat was out of the bag for Zach Kays here, and the thread in turn would cause a massive cascade of people to come out talking about their experiences with him while he was known under this recent alias Golden Nova. Someone named Reagan would come out and say that he tried to hit on him back in March 2024 but felt he was weird and also caused some friendships to fall apart in their circles. And someone else named Smashwaffle would come out with a Google document explaining how things went down between him and ToonKritic during their friendship. He would go on to say how he first met him in the Pokemon roleplay Twitter community in December 2022, became friends, eventually joining a Discord server centered around the subject matter. ToonKritic would even get some art pieces from him at a discount after pressuring him a bit, but it seemed that things were okay so far. Smashwaffle will also go on to say how ToonKritic would pressure and poke fun at him and others while also making flirtatious and unwanted sexual remarks, which while if this was a normal person it could easily be seen as someone just pushing it too far a bit, knowing how ToonKritic is like, he clearly had ulterior motives going on here. Eventually he would take this too far one day and somebody would leave their Discord server because of it, with ToonKritic downplaying what he did when he explained what was going on, something that he's known for doing throughout his time online whenever getting exposed. Smashwaffle would apologize for being misled by him to dislike the other person and for not knowing about his past, which to be fair, nobody in these circles knew about his past. The rest of the document is mostly venting, so it's not worth digging deep into, but it was clear that ToonKritic here was still up to his old ways despite everything that's happened in his life so far. Another person named Rocker will come out and make his own thread on the man, also talking about the old stuff as a refresher for anybody new following this whole situation. He would reveal that the FBI apparently investigated the guy alongside the police about the old situation, but nothing ever came of it because nothing physical happened, going on to say that he met him in March 2023 also on the Twitter roleplay community and eventually became friends due to their similar interests. He would talk about how ToonKritic was overly flirtatious with him and always trying to push things to a more serious tone, even trying to hook up with the guy at a furry convention in 2023. The hookup never happened thankfully, and eventually after months of not really caring about his friends around him and other miscellaneous stuff, he and some others would have a Discord call with him as these were massive red flags to him, in which they would lay out their issues with the guy on top of how he didn't want to kick out a pedo out of a server before getting pressured into it. Obviously they didn't know at the time he was one as well. And the rest of the post is a small event about him being a vile person that he hangs around the Chicago scene for anybody wondering about his whereabouts in the real world. Next would be somebody named Arvin as they would go on to talk about their experience with ToonKritic. It would start off by exposing 3 of his Twitter roleplay accounts for the public to see, those being Fight Night Bay, The Golden Paw, and Hot To Go Arcalvers, before telling people to block those accounts and that he basically begged them for free art at one point in time. That's their whole story, but still, knowing that these 3 accounts were his was a vital step in exposing the dude some more over half a decade later. Someone named Finnegan would come out about their experience with a man, in which they would go on about how in May 2021 they logged into their roleplay account and came across someone named Tommy, with that being Zach Kays here, and that he had a channel to post nudes in his Discord server which he found a bit off-putting. Now, if I'm being honest here, in this situation, it sounds at worst that ToonKritic was just using him for pleasure and not really caring about the guy himself. But one thing I found interesting was that he also wanted to fly him out one day, just like pretty much everybody else he's spoken to online, showing just how depraved this guy is. Eventually, ToonKritic would start using the guy for his money in games and art commissions and such. And despite knowing the dude was at somebody else for over a year by the time 2024 rolled about, he was still trying to convince him to meet up IRL and go down on each other. While dynamics like these are confusing and happen in real life all the time between people, knowing that Zach K's here has preyed on a young girl and continues to go after anybody who gives even a slight bit into his advances shows this isn't just some awkward experience, but somebody well aware of the way they act and how they've been doing it for years up to this point. Another person named Angel will go ahead and make a post calling out his Twitter roleplay accounts, with 2 new ones called Chug Street Wolf and Unchained Lupine being added into the mix. Chug Street Wolf has since been deactivated so far, and Unchained Lupine is still around, with it being an RP account based off the character Legoshi from the anime Beastars. Another person named Alexander here will go on to say how Zach befriended him despite knowing about him being a survivor of assault like that whilst not informing him about preying on minors. Someone named Icarus will come out and drop a couple screenshots of him talking with ToonKritic after Vinny dropped his thread on him, in which the first shows how ToonKritic himself was going on an event about how people are bringing up 6-year-old drama to bury him, with Icarus of course not aware of his past and thinking it was just normal venting going on. ToonKritic would eventually confess to him after being prodded about how he was preying on that girl from back in 2018 but swears he's a changed man now, with Icarus rightfully going straight at him for not giving the full details on how he wanted to fly them out and all that other stuff after linking Vinny's thread. ToonKritic would try to convince him again that he's changed, that he came to his senses and all that, with Icarus already making up his mind and telling him to leave the community he currently resides in and leaking these DMs for the rest of the world to see. Somebody named Judah come out and talk about how they met ToonKritic in March 2021 in Twitter roleplay circles and that he was overly expressive but nothing bad in their experience with him. Eventually, after a year of knowing each other, he would try to ask him out but would get rejected for being too old. But things would get weird in February 2023 when he invited a pedo known in the Sonic the Hedgehog roleplay circles named Habit into his Discord server one day. He would leak the DMs between each other during that day he informed him about the dude and eventually got him to confess and leave in shame. But the most important part would be this one line where he says that they had a good roleplay going on and would get shit for it if he doesn't let him go. Which, given that ToonKritic here has talked to a minor himself, comes off with a much different feeling with that context added into the mix. Sammy also made a Google Doc about some drama between the two of them, though it's not really interesting to be honest, but again shows that even in those circles his reputation wasn't exactly the best among that crowd. Honestly, I ain't surprised one bit that ToonKritic is still around on the internet, though I gotta say, I was a little bit surprised he was still hanging around these circles similar back to his MLP days. These are the kinds of people who will figure him and his name out pretty easily, and you would think if he wanted to stick around online he would move into a whole other side of the internet, but alas, here we are. It's pretty clear here that Zach Case is just gonna run away and find himself yet another identity to go by again. And let's face it, we'll probably find himself in another situation like this however many months or years later because he can't control himself and is always hitting on anybody who speaks to him. It's extremely pathetic, but given that he's done this with a minor before, I have no sympathy, and only time will tell when the next time he'll get exposed on the internet will be. After I released My Little Gooner, I ended up getting into contact with the GOAT person seen in the profile picture during the Skype call where all his friends exposed and dropped him. They would tell me that they dated ToonKritic at one point in time before he got exposed and that he tried to reach out to them in March 2023 to apologize, but they would unfortunately delete their DMs with him as they weren't thinking about it at the time, notably saying he was going under the name Golden Paw Energy during that time. When looking up anyone by the name Golden Paw Energy on Twitter, a single thread by somebody named Donny Boy will come up on July 19th, 2023, in which he exposes that this was ToonKritic on the account for the public to see. Donny would go on to give people a quick rundown on his identity and such for anyone who comes across his account, notably saying during his rant that ToonKritic tried to talk to a close friend of theirs that he apparently groomed but tried to apologize to, making me wonder just how many other people he's treated bad. The rest of the thread would be some more ranting and telling him to leave social media, and given I can't find Golden Paw Energy on Twitter now, it's safe to say this is one of his many alt accounts he dropped after getting caught again, not even recently mind you, but over a year ago now, again showing just how deep the rabbit hole goes with this guy. He's been getting exposed for a long time now and yet seems to always slip away from everyone, and so I decided to see how deep things went when he went by the name Golden Paw Energy. I messaged Donny and he would tell me how he knew ToonKritic from way back when he was known as Flame Amigo 619 in the Thomas the Tank Engine fandom, showing that he's been around the block. He would tell me how he learned about the pedo stuff when it came out and how ToonKritic disappeared, but would then say that sometime in spring 2023 he reached out to an old friend he allegedly groomed and sent them an apology message. Now obviously I don't have the full details on the alleged grooming that went down and probably never will given how far back it goes, but what I do have is evidence of that apology message he sent to the former friend. Now before we get into that, the GOAT person actually found a message they sent to a friend warning them that ToonKritic was back, and in the message you can see that it's dated April 28th, 2023 at 2 AM, meaning this was late into the night and probably happened a couple hours ago. Even though they lost their DMs, Donnie will hook me up with what ToonKritic sent to this other person, with it being a long-winded post about how he's apologizing for all the messed up stuff he's done to them and whatnot. He'd eventually open up and invite them to speak to him, asking if they want to message him back and that he's willing to speak to offer more closure. Also saying that if they don't want to, they can just delete and block him and let it end there. He also mentions how he remembers things before the fame and fortune as if he was worth anything of note to begin with, and given the only fame he has is being a pedo, it's just funny to make fun of him for saying this as he wrapped things up. The message was also sent to this person late in the night of April 27th, so it's very likely this is a variation of what he sent to the GOAT person as well. Now I kept doing some digging again like usual, but honestly I couldn't find anything more after this. I'm not surprised one bit I ended up finding another account that ToonKritic went by, but man, that makes 8 confirmed aliases he's gone by throughout his internet career, and without a doubt in my mind, I'm sure there are plenty more out there right now. There's a reason why I uploaded his whole section from My Little Gooner into this own video, and that's because everyone out there deserves to know he's still lurking around these corners of the internet despite being such a massive degenerate freak. Speaking of lurking around, Icarus will end up finding a 9th account called SpectreBus94 from the guy on September 4th just a few days ago. The account has since been deactivated, and no doubt he's already made a new one as he continues to prey on literally anyone he can, showing just how much of a disgusting loser he is. It's a shame really that he keeps trying to inch his way back into these communities. It's also a shame that right after I posted My Little Gooner that it got demonetized, so please, if you don't mind donating to my Patreon or YouTube memberships, I'll be very much appreciated as this stuff ain't easy for me to do on my own, especially when all that work gets screwed by YouTube's monetization system. Either way, people will always be on the lookout for Zach K's here for the rest of his life, and at this rate it's not if he returns, but when he returns yet again given how things have gone with him.